Hello, this is a lecture for Chemical Engineering Thermodynamics I, and we are at lecture 2B. And in the part 1 of lecture 2B, I introduced the term degree of freedom, and at the end of the lecture, we calculate the change in internal energy dU and enthalpy dH according to these two equations. Okay, so we were at this slide at the end of last part of the lecture 1B. For this video, I would like to show a little bit more in the clarification about calculation using indirect path comparing to direct path. Okay, at the end of last lecture, we also mentioned that enthalpy is state properties, so that you can calculate them directly according to the actual path taking place in the system, or you can draw your own path, and then if the indirect path you have more information, sometimes it is easier to use indirect path. Now the question is, can we still use these two equations if there is a phase change in our system? For instance, if the system here is a boiler and we provide liquid water going in, and then we want to get vapor or steam coming out of the boiler, can we still use these two equations in similar manner as what we discussed in the previous clip? The answer is that inside the boiler, there must be two phases together, right? But you have to be aware that these two equations were derived under assumption that here it was derived for one component, one phase system only. If in your system there are two phases, therefore the degree of freedom will be reduced from 2 to only 1. Okay, so these two equations are no longer valid. Okay, if you use these two equations, then you are over specifying the system. Okay, so in this case, when you have phase change, you have to redo the derivation again. Okay, so what should we do when we have phase change? Let's start with change in phase from a solid. Okay, from what you learn in materials science or material engineering, we learned that solid may exist in different phases, like in phase A here and phase B there. Different phases of solid, even though the energy will be very much alike. However, it might not be totally the same. Okay, so if I convert from one phase to another, we need to provide energy. So if the energy provided is, or if the transition takes place under constant pressure, then the amount of energy provided, or what we call heat, can be equal to change in enthalpy. So in this case, I would like to use these two black lines to represent enthalpy level of these two phases. Okay, so changing from one phase to another requires the enthalpy change, and this enthalpy change under the constant pressure would equal to amount of heat required. Okay, if you heat it up from solid, it would melt into liquid. Okay, again, transition from solid to liquid requires energy, and in the same manner, vapor, which has much higher energy than liquid, supposed to require energy to convert from liquid to vapor. Okay, so conversion from solid to liquid is called the process of fusion or melting. The change in enthalpy associated with melting is called heat of fusion. Okay. The conversion from liquid to vapor is called the process of vaporization, and the change in enthalpy here is called heat of vaporization. Please note that we use the word heat because normally these phase changes are assumed to take place under constant pressure. Okay, and under constant pressure, delta H equal to heat. We can also go directly from solid to vapor. The process is called sublimation. Okay, the conversion of sublimation can be monitored, or you can see the sublimation of ice very easily in your freezer. If you open up freezer and put the ice in there and leave it for a very long time, you can notice that the size of your ice cube would shrink to get smaller and smaller. That's the process of sublimation that you can observe easily. All of these transitions, according to this diagram, take place at the same temperature. Okay, and all of these takes place under the same pressure as well. Of course, it might be very difficult to imagine. Let's say if I have the temperature that is 0 degrees Celsius, the conversion from ice to liquid water can take place. Everybody understand that. But changing from liquid to vapor at 0 degrees Celsius may be very hard to understand. But please keep in mind that these lines are theoretical lines, okay, at this point. The term is called latent heat. Okay, the change in enthalpy associated with phase change is called latent heat, like latent heat of vaporization, latent heat of fusion, or latent heat of sublimation. The sign of latent heat, if it is positive, according to our notation earlier, that heat which is positive means that the energy enters system, right? So if energy enters system, after the energy transfer within the system, energy level will be higher. Okay, so just like this, when you have liquid water, if you increase the energy of liquid water, water changes the phase into vapor. So conversion from liquid water to vapor is endothermic process and requires input of energy. On the other hand, if you condense vapor back to liquid, vapor has excess energy to be released before the conversion to liquid. The condensation would be exothermic process with the delta H of the sign to be negative. Okay. There's another term associated with latent heat. The term is standard. The word standard. Normally you may have heard the word standard latent heat of formation or of vaporization, or standard latent heat of fusion. The word standard is basically means the pressure is indicated to be 1 bar. Okay, so whenever you see the word standard, it means that pressure is at 1 bar. And this 1 bar is not 1 atm. It's a little bit different than 1 atm. 1 bar is 10 to the power of 5 Pascal. Just like this. Delta H vaporization, heat of vaporization, the circle here indicates the word standard. Okay, so this is a standard heat of vaporization. Note here that the circles indicate pressure, but temperature is not indicated here. So normally people would put the temperature down here as a subscript. Okay. Now let's say that if I have water, okay, the whole system, the conversion from water's solid ice to vapor taking place at T1 of let's say that T1 is minus 5 degrees Celsius. Okay, if I heat up ice, it is more understandable that ice would melt at 0 degrees Celsius under pressure of 1 atm. Okay, so if I have to heat up ice from -5 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius, T2 here would be 0 degrees Celsius. Before convert ice at 0 degrees Celsius to water, liquid water at 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the energy level or enthalpy level of water at 0 degrees Celsius should be a little bit higher than water at -5 degrees Celsius. The conversion here from ice at -5 to ice at 0 degrees Celsius is called sensible heat, and it can be calculated based on the integration of heat capacity with respect to temperature. Okay, so delta H1 here is called sensible heat, and Cp here supposed to be Cp of solid ice. Okay, then you can use the heat of fusion to melt ice at 0 degrees Celsius to liquid water at 0 degrees Celsius. These two heat of fusion are not equal. They are not the same. They are at different temperature. So normally people would put temperature as an indicator on the subscript here. So heat of fusion at T1, heat of fusion at T2, and so on. Alright? So this is what we call sensible heat for the green one. Now if you heat up water from 0 degrees Celsius to 100 degrees Celsius to boiling point under pressure of 1 atm, okay, T3 here would be 100 degrees Celsius. Of course, heating up here is also called sensible heat and can be calculated based on integration of Cp dt, but you have to notice that, or you have to be very careful that Cp here supposed to be Cp of water in liquid state. This Cp is not the same as this Cp. The green one is Cp of ice. Okay, but these two are called sensible heat otherwise. When you have water at 100 degrees Celsius, then you can boil and change into steam. Okay, the energy required would equal to latent heat of vaporization at 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, the whole picture here, the whole diagram takes place under fixed pressure. To be easier to understand, let's say that the pressure is 1 atm. Okay, and if I plot in three-dimensional axis, just like in the last lecture or last video clip, we have temperature axis, pressure axis, and enthalpy axis. Then this diagram can be redrawn by using this picture. You can see the step here. I use the same color: green, blue, purple, and brown. Okay. Another thing that I like to emphasize is that normally the magnitude or the size of heat of fusion, heat of vaporization, or latent heat in general are much greater than the size or magnitude of sensible heat. So if you want to do cooling, for instance, it would be more effective to use heat or latent heat for cooling. Just like our sweat, we sweat water out of our pores, right? So we have a droplet of water on our skin. When the droplets evaporate, it requires heat. That heat is latent heat of vaporization, and that latent heat of vaporization is drawn from our body, so making our body cooler. Okay, so it is always more effective to use latent heat of vaporization or latent heat of fusion or latent heat of any kind of phase transition for cooling or heating. Okay, that's the reason why normally in chemical engineering process we use steam or we use cooling water. Okay. Now, this diagram takes place at pressure P1. Okay, this is the same pressure. The whole steps takes place under the same pressure. What would happen if I like to calculate the change from solid ice to steam at different pressure? Let's say pressure P2. There will be some steps in the similar manner. However, the transition temperature might not be the same as T1, T2, T3. Let us call that T1 prime, T2 prime, and T3 prime. Okay, there will be steps like that. So the first step would be ice heating up to ice at another temperature, and then melt to water. Okay, and water heats up to boiling point, and water boils into steam. Okay, everything takes place at pressure P2. If I like to calculate the change in enthalpy between these two highlighted points, that means I want to know how much heat is required to fulfill this requirement. If I go from the initial point, follow this straight line till I get the final state. This is the direct path, the calculation according to direct path. Okay, basically I just need sensible heat, the integration of Cp dt, plus the latent heat of fusion, plus integration of Cp dt, and plus latent heat of vaporization. The problem is that normally latent heat of vaporization or latent heat of fusion are available only under atmospheric pressure, or 1 bar, the standard value. So the value here at another pressure, maybe I want to calculate under 10 bars, the value of heat of fusion and heat of vaporization at 10 bars are not available. So we cannot calculate through this direct path. Instead, we need to form the indirect path according to our available data. Okay, you see that the line at 1 bar here, the data are available. So we need to go from the initial point through this indirect path, go back to where we have data, and calculate it according to this blue line before going back to the final state. Okay, so these blue lines are basically indirect paths that we can use because we have the data. Okay, the other thing that you need in addition to the data here at the blue line would be the curved blue lines. These would be the conversion or the change in enthalpy from the initial point by changing pressure and a little bit of temperature here. So this is 2 steps. Actually, one curved line here should be split into 2 steps. The first step is a conversion by changing pressure under constant temperature T1 prime, and then convert by changing temperature from T1 prime to T1 under constant pressure P1. Okay, but if you assume that T1 and T1 prime are very much the same, so this line can be taken as the conversion of enthalpy or change in enthalpy under the process of changing pressure. Okay, similar thing would be applied to T3 and T3 prime as well. So this diagram, I just want to show you the concept of the calculation using indirect path. This is sometimes would be very helpful, especially when we have limited amount of data. Okay, so this video clip would be relatively short. I just want to show you the calculation about the phase change. Okay, the next video clip would give the similar idea about comparing direct and indirect paths, but we will try to apply the concept to chemical reaction. Okay, so for this video clip, thank you for watching.